Everyone. We may have a few folks continue to enter the webinar, but since it is 2 p.m., we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our first anniversary webinar. My name is Kayla Stukes. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a PhD student at North Carolina State University pursuing my degree in forestry. I am also an intern for Field Inclusive. Also, just so you are aware, this webinar will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel, so be sure you follow us there for easy access to these recordings again. Also, stay tuned until the end of the webinar, where we will announce the winner of our anniversary giveaway. Shortly, I will introduce our speaker, but first, I would like to give a huge thanks to everyone who has donated and supported our nonprofit. Today marks the founding of Field Inclusive, and we are so proud of everything we've been able to accomplish in just 1 year. Thanks to you all, we've partnered with 6 organizations, hosted our first Field Inclusive Week, launched our Beginning Birders program, conducted several DEI trainings, working groups, and panel events, and crowdfunded enough money to begin production of NCSU field safety gear. Perhaps our proudest accomplishment of this year was being able to support 4 marginalized students through our research grants, travel awards, and fellowship. Keep an eye out for our next newsletter, which will include a year-end review detailing all of our activities, goals, accomplishments, funding, and next steps. It is through our many generous donations and sponsorships that we can continue our mission of supporting marginalized and historically excluded field researchers in the natural sciences. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our topic and speaker for today's webinar. Over this past year, the most frequent comments and questions we've encountered stem from people being unaware that social field safety is an issue for marginalized researchers and surprised that there are barriers to participating in field research. So today, we'd love to address the history that created current social field safety issues and what we can do to start solving them. To address this topic, we've invited Alex Troutman to present on our Walking Through the Nature Doorway and holding it open for others to follow. Alex Troutman is a fish and wildlife biologist and environmental educator with a passion for sharing and immersing the younger generation into nature. He has a bachelor's of biology and a master's with a focus in conservation biology and wetland sciences from Georgia Southern University. Knowing how it feels to not see anybody who looks like you in your dream career, Alex makes it a point to be that representation for the younger generation. Alex strives to make sure that the nature is accessible to all. That includes not only having access to natural areas, but ensuring that access is equitable, where all can work in and visit nature, as well as have the same quality of nature to visit, including areas to forage, fish, and hunt, and other areas that facilitate recreation and relaxation. We invite the audience to write questions using the Q&A function to be answered at the end of the presentation. And with that, I'll turn it over to Alex.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Thanks for that introduction, Kayla, and let's get started. All right, so today we're going to talk about walking through the nature doorway and keeping it open for others to follow. So before we get started on our topic, I'll talk a little bit about myself. So I'm from Austell, Georgia. I went to Georgia Southern University. I worked at the Georgia Aquarium. I have worked with the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, the National Park Service, as a private consulting, and also, again, with the Fish and Wildlife Service. And currently, I'm a CNOS Fellow stationed in Washington, D.C. So how did this little guy right here with this shark shirt get to start working with and exploring with animals? I'm working with catfish right there, or just holding a horseshoe crab. Well, for me, it all started with walking through that nature doorway. So what is a nature doorway? A nature doorway is any item, thing, idea, or place that draws, connects, or inspires one to the outdoors and natures. So it can be anything from magazines to state parks to your backyard, beaches, a certain smell like driving down I-95 and getting a smell of the salt marsh. It can be tools like binos. It can be objects like birds, frogs, and also can be people like siblings, conservationists, and TV hosts. For me, my nature doorway involved a spark bird and a few fish. My love for nature started with me being out in nature with my family. I used to go fishing at one of my local state parks with my dad and uncles and brothers. And I would be more, and I guess at awe with the tail of the red-tailed hawk, seeing the glow of the sun like flowing through its tail, instead of actually fishing. But don't tell anybody, I used to get outfished by the great blue herons that was fishing alongside us. But this is my spark bird. This is what got me into nature. It's those moments with my family and then seeing this beautiful bird. But at the time, I really didn't know what a spark bird was, but I know that this was what got me into nature. So that was my nature doorway. That doorway has led me to work with many different animals and many different positions and jobs, from working with lesser hedgehog, Madagascar, and tin rats at Zoo Atlanta to working with sea turtles and woodpeckers and banding wood ducks, to also being able to experience and working with sharks. That doorway has given me a tremendous opportunity to follow my passion and to engage with nature. So how do we keep this doorway open? It starts with acknowledging our privilege. Even as a Black male in America, I have a privilege that other people don't have. Many women. So for me, we all have to acknowledge our privilege, and that comes with not only being able to access nature, but also how to access is without fear. For many reasons, all of us are not able to maybe go camping or explore the woods, and some of us not even working outdoors. And we have to understand, for me, like I said, I have that privilege of being a Black male where in some cases I am a lot safer in the outdoors than my female non-binary counterparts. But even in those privileges, I don't have the full privilege that many of my white counterparts have, where I can go in the outdoors without having to make sure I'm sharing my location with someone. I'm telling my family where I'm going. I'm looking into the areas where I'm going and acknowledging any racial context that could come about. If I don't acknowledge those privileges that I have, I can't and will not be able to keep the door for those that are coming behind me. We have to tear down the barriers that are in place. The nature doorway is open to everyone, but equal access to nature and to walk through those doorways are not open. So some of these barriers include systematic racism. It's the lack of opportunities, not having the right transportation to get you to your state park that may be miles away, or even national parks that could be in your backyard, so to speak. Like I have a national battlefield that's 30 minutes from my house that up until the last decade or so, it really didn't have a way to get there if you didn't have a car or you didn't live in a vicinity. But now there's somewhat of a bus route to get close to it, and you can take other buses there. But even that can be a barrier, and it's a lack of situation awareness. Going to different parks and nature areas with individuals who may come from a different background than you. They may have the understanding that because they never had any problems, that you're not going to have any problems. Oh, I go to this park or this area all the time and no one ever bothers me. But not realizing that that's because they are from a different background. They have a different experience than you. So we need to understand and knock down those barriers of situation awareness, and also it's traditions, and we always done it this way. It's, you know what, we always started birding at 9:30 a.m. because that's when the birds are. Instead of saying like, well, how can we be accommodatable and let others come? Okay, maybe it's not starting right at 9:30. Sure, you may miss some birds, but maybe it's pushing it back to 10:30, 11:30 to allow people that may sleep in or that have other priorities to start their day before they can actually come out and get into nature. It's changing those rules. It's making sure that everyone is being held accountable for any actions that they do, even the people that are older than everyone. They don't get a silver street pass. So gray hair folks who have been in nature for a long time or who have worked in the system for a long time, they don't get any passes to continue either being misogynist, racist, and other ways that are calling people to not feel comfortable. They're not going to get any passes just because they're old or they've been in a situation or a particular position longer than anyone. So make sure that no one gets passes from the president of the company or club to a newcomer. If someone is making a outing, a group unhospitable, we need to hold them accountable and make sure that they're not becoming a barrier. Other barriers that are involved with um, either blocking or trying to block the nature doorway is concerned neighbors and park users, the ones who seem like they're doing good, but are, for instance, calling police and saying, "Oh, I'm worried that they're up to no good just because they see people of color in the park that they utilize." And they're worried that they're going to be doing something that they're not supposed to, not even realizing who they are or what they're doing. And it's funny, like this happened to me many times, not just with being in nature for my own time, but also working as a conservationist and doing field work. But one of the things that it's not funny, it's sad, but it's amazing. Like I call it the Superman or Clark Kent effect, and it's I can get out of my car and go to an area to enjoy nature, do wildlife photography, bird, and I can walk around and walk past people. No one says anything, but it's like a magic effect. As soon as I pull out binoculars or my camera, people are interested in talking to me, and it shouldn't be that way. If someone comes to your area and they're interested in nature, you shouldn't, one, be afraid to talk to them, or two, be worried that they're up to no good or think you need to call the cops on them, which in some cases it does happen, like the Christian Cooper incident where he told a white lady to put her dog on a leash because she was in there that dogs were supposed to be on a leash and he was birding. But she took it way dramatically, called the police and said that he was threatening her, all which is not true. So in this instance, those things are not only barriers, but they could also be determinants. Another barrier that is involved with keeping the door way open that we need to work on is lack of finances. I already talked about transportation, but also it's adequate gear, whereas having the right jackets or binoculars, anything that can make it more accessible. And lastly, another barrier is language and science terms that can make people feel, I guess, not included or also in some way not as smart as other people because they're not knowing the full terms or not knowing about what a mode is or looking for plumage. Instead of just saying plumage, we say, oh, look at the feathers, and also being direct, like instead of being like Nate or cross-eying somebody because they're calling it the belly instead of the breast. But be more inclusive in that. And lastly, another thing is like all these animals, there's names for them, like if someone calls a red bird, a cardinal a red bird, or calling a Cooper hawk a chicken hawk, because that's the way where they grew up. That's the word and term for their locality where their parents are. It's like, don't get mad at them and say, no, it's a northern cardinal and be snarky, or it's a Cooper hawk, it's not a chicken hawk. No, like, you got to understand that where the way that they connected with nature, their way to nature is maybe through their older parents, or their uncles and stuff, who worked the land, or who has been a sort of naturalist in his own way, and they told them that this is the order cardinal, this is a cooper, this is a chicken hat, this is a chicken hawk, or for crows, this is a blackbird. You can't get mad at them and try to make another bear. It's like, oh, like, you can't come birding with us, or you can't work in nature because you're not using the terms that I know that are in this book. One second. Another way that we can all keep the doorway to nature open is not being afraid to grab a hand and take someone with you. Show them why you enjoy nature, why you want to be a conservationist, why you are a conservationist. It doesn't matter if they're young and old, they're from a different city, they look like you, they don't look like you. Don't be afraid to grab the hand, show them their passion, show them your passion, and maybe it'll instill a passion in nature, in field work, in them through you. And also by showing them your passion, and engaging with them, it's kind of brings up like a safety, like, you're stronger together, you're stronger in groups, but also it can break down their barriers of them being afraid because they don't know the trails, or they are afraid that someone's gonna approach them, or they're just afraid that they're gonna get lost. But if you're able to make someone feel welcome and invite them to go out with you in nature, that's one way that you can open that nature doorway. And it doesn't really even have to be anything as sensitive as like going birding or camping. It's going to be like, hey, let's take a walk around the neighborhood and see what we see. Or it's like, let's just sit on the porch in your backyard and see how many bird species come by, how many butterflies we see. Or even if it's in the fall, like, let's just watch the leaves fall and just experience that nature, to break down those barriers of them being afraid to be in nature. Some people being afraid of bugs, like, okay, let's stay inside, let's stay and look out the window for a little bit, and then eventually we can go outside, sit on the porch. But just find a way to make them feel comfortable in nature. And inviting takes a long step. It takes a lot of that fear and discomfort out of it. You're more likely to go somewhere new if someone invites you, and someone, a familiar face. So don't be afraid to, like I said, grab a hand and take someone with you. Or maybe it's not grabbing a hand, but it's, here, this is why I'm passionate about. Look at these pictures. Showing them the birds you saw or your field work. That can be a huge opening, and that's one way that the doorway to nature can stay open. Next, we must engage the whole team, and that includes not only older generations, but the younger people as well. It includes all people in the BIPOC spectrum, as well as our allies. Each individual or group, they're going to bring their own strengths and talents, and we have to truly have a collaborative effort and work with all people if we truly are going to create and make sure that the doorway to nature is staying open. So we're going to have to work with everybody, people who look like us, people who speak the same language as us, people who don't speak the same language as us, people who are younger than us, and people who are well than us, and also people who are beginners in the field, in the hobby, as well as people who are those seasoned, those vets. I can count on my hand like how many times some of the kids I work with teach me something new or give me a new perspective of nature, of the outdoors, because they have shown me what their doorway for nature looks like. So you can't put anybody off just because, like I said, their doorway to nature is different from yours. That we all have to be a collective and work to make sure that the doorway to nature is staying open. And it's the doorway to nature. It's a heavy door to keep open, and there's a lot of different systematic challenges as well as other issues that are fighting to keep the doorway closed for some individuals. But we have to work as a team to make sure that we're stronger than those forces, and we're trying to keep the doorway open for all. So another way that the doorway to nature can stay open is increasing the diversity in the workforce of the conservation field. So BIPOC individuals, as conservation workers, we're endangered as some of the wildlife and plant species we study. The U.S. Census Bureau in 2020, white individuals made up almost 80% of the conservation and forest workers, while we BIPOC individuals only made up around like 18%, less than 20% of the forest and conservation workers in the U.S. With increasing the diversity of the conservation field, it's not only increasing the workforce, but it also leads to better problem solving and conservation through acknowledging local and traditional ecological knowledge. So what diversifying the conservation workforce bring, like I said, going back to working together, we all bring our own individual knowledge and skills. So just imagine as we diversify the conservation workforce, what it would look like if we are all being able to contribute our ideas and the knowledge that we have to the workforce instead of relying on mostly Western science. Next, we must dismantle and destroy systems that was never meant for all of us. So this quote right here, Shirley Chisholm, she was a politician there. She was the first Black lady to be elected as Congress and first Black lady to run for the Democratic president nomination. But she has a quote that says, "If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair." And I will add to that, bring a folding chair and watch the table fall, because a table that's built on has been built on the backs of BIPOC individuals for so long through oppressive measures cannot stand still if we all work together to dismantle that table. If we come together and take our resources from that table and create a new table where all are not only welcome but celebrated and encouraged to bring their ideas and create a table where we all are contributing equally, and where it's not being broken on knowledge that was either stolen or suppressed and claimed for someone else's knowledge. So this is a little excerpt from a paper that I recently wrote. So with this, I'll send it out so you guys can read it, but you take a look at it. But again, the table that we have it's a table that had a brand new white tablecloth on it, though it was not clean, it was not repaired. So it's literally a wholly undirty table that just has a new look to it, because now we're saying all are welcome, but we have not acknowledged and brought up the hurtful things that have been done in the past. And we're still telling individuals that, oh, you're welcome to this table, even though your family blood and knowledge make this table. Instead, that table needs to be destroyed, burned, and we need to create that new table where all are welcome and we all are creating and contributing to that table in an equal amount of space, and we all have access to it. Because even though the table that we have now is a table that they says is for all, it's not true. That table is still, again, built on systematic pressures. That table is also, it can say, "Oh, you're at our table, so this is our work. We did this. We contributed." Instead of like we all did this, but no, it's a table that allows for ideals and problems that have been solved to be stolen and celebrated as a work not from you, but from me. This is my work. It's not your work. It's not our work, but it's my work. And next, take up and create space. That's how you create a doorway open. A doorway can't close if there's a stopper in place. So be that door stopper. Take up space, create space for people who look like you, create space for individuals that don't look like you to come together and work with you, to enjoy nature with you, to do field work with you. And take up that space and reclaim it, reclaim the space for people who like you. Show them that BIPOC individuals do belong in outdoors, have been outdoors, and will continue to be in outdoors. You can't close a door if there's something blocking it. So make sure you're taking it up and creating a space, blocking that door so it's not easily shut. And lastly, we must all stick together, come together to not only destroy any tables that are meant to oppress folks, but to stand together, blocking the door so it's not shut. So you have your personal door stopper to make sure the doors are staying open, but you also are coming together and creating a bigger door stopper to keep the door open by working together, being a strong collaborative force against the pressures that are looking to make sure that people are having a harder time getting into nature or finding that nature doorway. So we all need to stick together to make sure that we can not only keep the doorway open, but we can continue to funnel people through the doorway, to encourage people to find their own doorway and get into nature, and not only find that doorway, but also share it, be passionate about what you're doing, what you're experiencing, and pass it along to your friends, to your kids, to your family, and even to your students if you have them. But again, we must all stick together. It's gonna take a lot of work, but as we all work together, it's definitely possible for us to keep the doorway open and to increase people's passion for nature. And lastly, I'll end with this. Diversity, it's not enough. So diversity, this analogy, diversity is like the sugar cookies. Like, sure, it's diverse. You see all the different colors sprinkles there, but you can literally take that cookie, shake it, wipe it off, and all that diversity is gone. We need to be more inclusive, like these delicious chocolate chunk cookies here. If you want to get rid of the inclusion, you will have to take the cookies apart and try to pick all the chocolate out. But even if you pick the chocolate chunks out, there will still be remnants, evidence of the chocolate or inclusion left in the cookie. It's not easily destroyed. It's not easily shaken off and taken out of, because it is something that is built into the framework of the cookie. It's built in, it's mixed in, it's baked in. Whereas with diversity, it looks good on the outside, but there's more to that. It needs to be baked in, it needs to be integrated into the system, into your office, into our communities. So again, we need to, while diversity is there, we need to be more inclusive. And that's how we're definitely going to keep the doorway to nature open. All right, thank you guys.
This was a wonderful presentation, Alex. Thank you once again for your expertise. So we will now jump into the Q&A portion of our discussion. Again, we invite you all to write questions using the Q&A function. So let's start here. So Alex, your first question says, in your experience, do you think it is harder getting people more access to a nature doorway, or are things happening after getting into that doorway that create most of the barriers for minorities in this field?
For me, I think it's a little of both. So it's definitely getting people access through a doorway, due to like many of the fears and disadvantages that are in place. Some of those are easily overcome, but others it takes a lot more effort into getting those doorways open. And then once those doorways are open, due to some of the practices that are in place, it takes a lot more effort for people to stay in those doorways, to increase a belonging or a fitting in those doorways, because of the practices that are in place.
Thank you. Okay. So another question says, have you got any other analogies for the good of us all? She said she loved cookies as well.
Yes, so let's see. Another analogy, I guess. It's more so talking about birds. So for me, one of the way that I like to think about birds is they're open, they're flyers, most of them are. But when birds take off, what do they usually do? They usually relieve waste, drop extra baggage. So many times we need to, as humans, we need to know that sometimes in order to be successful, to uplift and change, we need to drop the extra baggage that may be holding us down. And a lot of times it's probably crap anyway. So be like a bird. If we want to take off, let go of that baggage.
Thank you for sharing. Your next question says, what do you see to be the most critical part of the process of rebuilding tables that welcome everyone in?
I think one of the critical processes with rebuilding those tables, a lot of people at the table that we have now don't want to give up their seat at the table, and step away from the table to make a new table. And it's also, there's not a lot of privilege, I'm going to be honest, white privilege that is being used to destroy the current table we have and to build a new table. So one of those challenges is ensuring and making sure that people who have a extreme amount of privilege use that privilege for good and not just hold on to it, taking up space. So they need to be more intentional about how they're using their privilege and when.
Okay. Your next question says, what would be your advice to a high school student that is looking at going into natural resources in college? And this is our tips for finding a program, college/location that supports them.
So the first tip I would say, be comfortable being uncomfortable. Many situations wherever you're gonna go to, you may be the first or you may be few of BIPOC individuals in that space. So you gotta be comfortable being uncomfortable because it's gonna be times where you're gonna be uncomfortable throughout your college career, leading into your professional career. And then next, when looking for a program, university, make sure you're reaching out to the people who are in charge there, the professors that you want to work with, as well as his or her their students, to get the full perspective on how they are, not only when they're talking to you, but when they're talking to other people about you, when you're not in the room, when they're talking to other students, how they treat other students, how do they treat people who are under them, people who look different than them. How are they when things are not going according to plan, or when you miss a deadline, or you decide that you don't want to do the project that they want you to do, you want to do your own thing. You want to know how they are in all those situations, as well as your school. When you're looking at your school that you want to go to, you want to know not only what the community feels like the school community, but also the community outside the school community, because there's some schools that have a great like college community aspect that you go 3-4 miles outside of school, and it's not hospitable for some individuals who do not look like the norm of that community. So you want to make sure you're researching your schools and the areas and towns. Like, look at the towns, like laws, look at any like hate crimes or crimes in general that have happened in the town that you're going to go to. Then also just see if you have any close connections to that community where you may going. And then before you get there, go ahead and find people that you can connect with while you're there, and having a good support group.
Thank you. Your next question says, do you have any recommendations for groups that are informal and have little resources for creating an inclusive and welcoming space? For example, creating a better space for folks with and without disabilities.
Yeah, so I mean, it starts with so while you might have little resources, like you still have like your mind, like, so I think it starts with like being welcoming from that perspective. Like, it takes zero amount of money to understand where someone's coming from, understand someone's disability, or researching it, or just talking to them in general, asking them like, how can we accommodate you, and not going above them and saying, this is what we think you should do, or this is how we feel we can help you, but actually getting their thought on it as well. And then also, again, stronger together. If there's another group near you that has limited resources, team up, work with them. You guys maybe apply to grants together and to get some resources as well. But it definitely starts with being here and having a heart, and trying to understand and be supportive, and asking individuals how you can help them, instead of thinking you know it all and just saying this is what we are going to do for you, but asking how to help.
Thank you. So your next question says, do you have any wisdom on how to disrupt when you witness someone putting up a barrier? For example, witnessing someone correcting about chicken hawk, etc.
Yeah. So honestly, you want to come at it depends on the situation. I will say that as well. But you want to come in at as calm as possible, and maybe like deflect from it, oh, like they might say, oh, that's not a chicken house, Cooper House, and it's like, oh, this chicken house or Cooper House looks similar to Sharp Sing House, and try to like just deflect and change the subject. But also, if someone is definitely like berating someone about it, and say, I'm sure there's things that you call there, or you call it differently, or there's objects that you like that someone else don't like. It doesn't mean that you have to get upset and angry at this person because he's calling this a chicken hawk and you call it a Cooper's hawk. And it's like, I'm sure you may say potato different than someone else, or tomato. Like, it's these are just words, and you can't get mad at anyone for it. So like, you tell them like you should check yourself if you're angry over words.
Thank you for sharing. Your next question says, do you have any suggestions for people who may be unaware of the challenges minorities experience to approach the subject in conversation? I.e., is there a best practice for asking questions while also respecting the position of the one being asked and avoiding microaggressions?
So the best practice, there's each situation is different when it comes to this and asking these questions. For me, I think it's best like if you have a relationship with the individual, if you can ask them these questions. Otherwise, it can seem like you're coming at it from um, a different place. So if you definitely have a relationship with people, I think it's best if you can ask. Then otherwise, you can ask them if it's okay for you to ask these questions, because sometimes it's a lot of emotional or experience that comes with asking these questions. So you want to make sure that these people are okay with you asking those questions, but also asking them if they have the capacity to answer your questions right now or even hear them. And if that's the case, then you can ask them back. If they say no, maybe they'll leave it open for you to say, hey, shoot me an email or a text, and I'll be happy to ask later on when it's not fresh. But you want to make sure, as always, like you're coming from a place of intentionality and love in a way, and you want to make sure that they also are comfortable ask these questions, but also understand that they don't have to answer your questions, and they may have the mental capacity, emotional capacity to say, no, I don't want to answer these right now, or now's not the time, and I want to be in a better space before I answer them, or if I ever answer them, it still could be fresh. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Your next question says, do you have any advice on how to invite BIPOC to the table after an organization has recognized their issues?
Yeah. So it starts with building relationships. In order to invite people, like you need to have a relationship with them, and it shouldn't be like you going in to their space and saying, "Hey, here, come to my table and do this." But maybe it's you going in one of their programs or forming that relationship and going to a couple of the programs and having that relationship and then say, hey, like, would you be interested in this, or would you be interested in coming here, and not just giving like a cold out invite, like, hey, we're having dinner tomorrow, you can come. But it's having that relationship, and like it could be like them like and having an invite, like an open invite, and just saying like, hey, we have the meetings every Tuesday. Just pick a meeting whenever you want to come and show up, but not expecting like next Tuesday, 7 p.m. be there.
Thank you. Your next question says, in your time in the field, have you seen any growth in field science programs at HBCUs?
Yeah, so in my program, so a couple of programs that I have that are good, like FAMU and Tuskegee University are great programs. Those are the ones that I know most about. I have a couple of friends who go to those programs. And then other HBCUs, they still need spotlight. Well, all HBCUs need spotlight, and we need more support of them because it's lacking. It's lacking. There's still a huge disproportionate amount of resources, whether it be financial or technology tools, that are not going to HBCUs and other BIPOC serving universities. There's a huge disproportion in how much resources are going to these non-marginalized groups and their schools. So there's a huge effort that needs to be figured out and worked on to help increase the support that not only is available to HBCUs, but that actually goes to HBCUs. Because sometimes support that is going to HBCUs in a way from other like programs like are there's not truly all the money is truly not going to the HBCU. Sometimes the money is going through a third party, and then they're getting an even smaller cut to the HBCU, or saying hey, yes, we're working with this HBCU or this BIPOC group, but they're not fully working with them, or they're in the last minute just name dropping them in a grant or a paper to act like they're working with them. But truly, when they literally just reached out to one person at the school and like, oh, not even fully telling the story in order to get the proceeds of their grant or the resources, and then they forget about the HBCU after they have gotten the resource.
Thank you for sharing your answer with us, Alex. Your next question says, as an organization, we have few BIPOC applications to positions. We are on the West Coast. Are there places for us to reach a more specific BIPOC community with our postings?
Yes, so there are some groups. So I'm glad you said what you're posting, because a lot of times that is one problem. It's having the word out there, and how are you reaching audiences and getting the information out there? Is it going to be stuck in your organization or by word of mouth? So a couple of groups that I know out there that may be able to help you to fly your information. That I know it's Hundreds of Color. They're a nonprofit organization that encourage people to get into nature. You don't have to be a hunter to join it. They have a lot of different activities, but one of them is hunting. Another one is in California, is in San Diego. It's not in San Diego, it's in California. I can't think of the name of where it's at right now, but Justice Outside is another organization that can help with getting those there. And Hundreds of Colors is in Washington and Oregon mainly. But they're on the whole West Coast, but their headquarters are in those two states. And then other organizations or Outdoor Afro is pretty much nationwide, so you can reach out to them and help. They can help as well. So it's really, again, everything is about making connections and forming relationships.
Thank you. I think we have just a little more time for maybe one more question. So your last question says, do you have any more suggestions for allies?
Yeah, so allies, more suggestions. So again, one, like I said, be true to what your cause is. To utilize that privilege that you have. Form authentic relationship allow individuals to be who they are, be their authentic selves around you. 3, check your people. If you see someone doing something that's misogynistic, racist, homophobic, go ahead and check them, or find someone else to check them if you're uncomfortable. Also, providing resources, whether it be through technology, through tools, through trainings, through financially, but provide resources, and then also provide space as well. And again, just understanding that also all BIPOC individuals are not a monolith. We all are individual, our own person, as well as has an individual person in their particular racial background. So you can't expect me to answer for all Black people in the U.S. or even all Black people in the South, right? All Black people in my community in Georgia, because we all come from different backgrounds. So you also need to know what works for one group or one person might not always work for the other. So you need to make sure you definitely have that relationship and understand each individual, each group that you're working with, understand their needs, or what you can help them with as an ally in your area, or an ally to that individual. Because what my allies do for me may not, again, work for the other person. So you need to understand it as well. Then also understand that sometimes you have limitations as an ally, and certain things as an ally you probably should ask, can you do, before you just go and do it. For instance, like sometimes, like interjecting if someone is talking to a police officer, it could cause a situation to get worse, especially if that person is having it under control. And one best practice to do in that situation is, it may be, it's not to interject, but take notes and get your camera out, film it, and then record anything that you can. And then if the person invites you to come into the conversation with the officer, then come in, but don't just interject, because that can escalate situations. So as an ally, you need to know when to get involved, and sometimes when to sit back and wait for the person to reach out to you.
Thank you, Alex. So we actually have one more question, and I think this is a good question to wrap up on. So what's your best advice for BIPOC folks who are in the thick of fieldwork and dealing with advisors / leadership / etc., who want to support them, but just aren't getting it? In my experience, sometimes I've spoken to folks until I'm blue in the face, and leadership throughout, they were being supportive, but they just weren't able to or willing to empathize with the microaggressions. How do you advise folks on that side of it?
Yeah, so that's definitely a tough one, and sometimes it may actually be finding a support group outside of that community that can help you with that. And the academic world, while it's big, it's small as well. So you may can find someone who knows the particular group that you're working with that may be able to actually help you with that, and show them, like, yeah, you're doing something that is totally wrong, or it's not helping at all, and they can explain it in a different way or tone that you're trying to relate to them, because again, some of the people that are in leadership, and they're coming from a spot where I know more than you, or I'm older, I'm more seasoned experience than you. Like, so what you're telling me is not wrong, is not right or not true. So they may be coming at that aspect, instead of looking at it for where you're coming from. Like it shouldn't be, sadly it is, but it shouldn't be like, especially as a academic, so it shouldn't be like top down where the advisor, the school office is all knowing, but it should be more like a infinity sign or like a double triangle where both parties have like a lot of information resources and they're like passing it to each other and coming together to understand what each other knows or what works best for each other and passing it and figuring it out instead of being like authoritative and like this is right because we have so much more experience than you.
Thank you, Alex. So we are just about out of time. For those of you who had questions for Alex in the Q&A who didn't get to answer, Alex can answer them for you later on, and we can send them via email you registered with. We here at Field Inclusive would like to thank Alex Troutman for joining us today, and we thank you for the work that you are doing and continue to do when it comes to educating others and sharing your experiences. Do you have any final thoughts, Alex?
I just want to thank you guys for inviting me to speak and making space and creating space for me to be here today. And thank you all for tuning in.
Okay. Again, we thank you for those who joined us today. We will continue these conversations as we further our initiatives and work when it comes to amplifying social field safety issues. Now to announce the winner of our anniversary giveaway. Congratulations to James Berkey. If you are watching, please check your email so that we can give you your giveaway cards to you. Thank you for your support and donation to Field Inclusive, and thank you to everyone else who participated. Please be sure to follow and interact with us on all of our social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at the handle @FieldInclusive. Please also be sure to visit our website to learn more about our organization and ways that you as an individual or organization can support us. We hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you again for joining us.